A very good morning, students. Today in our lesson we'll be learning about drainage of India, peninsular rivers. We saw in the previous chapter differentiating between rivers in terms of Himalayan and peninsular. In the last chapter we spoke about the important rivers in the Himalayan region. Today we'll look at the peninsular region rivers. In today's class we'll learn about peninsular rivers, river regime, shifting course of the rivers and the interstate water disputes. The main rivers of peninsular India. Luni River. The Luni River rises near Ajmer in the Aravalli range and receives a few streams like the Bandi, Sukri and the Javai only on its left bank. The streams which drain the western flank of the Aravalli range south of Ajmer are seasonal. The Luni turns brackish below Balotra and loses itself southwards into the run of Kutch. Sabarmati River. This river drains the southern slope of the Aravalli range. It has a narrow long basin with an area of 21,700 square kilometers. Sabarmati receives its tributaries on its eastern flank and follows a nearly north-south course before merging into the Gulf of Khambat. Mahi River. The Mahi has its source in the Vindhyan hills of Madhya Pradesh. It flows southwest through the Banswada and the Anand districts and finally making an estuary merges into the Gulf of Khambat. Most of the rivers draining the west-facing scrap of the Western Ghats, particularly in the Konkan coastal belt, are short and swift flowing over a humid tropical landscape at 100 to 280 meters above the sea level along narrow to broad V-shaped valleys. These small streams have great erosive capacity. They display a parallel pattern of drainage characterized by sharp bends and fall into the Arabian Sea through estuaries. Now let's look at Sharavati River. Sharavati rises in the Shimoga district in Karnataka and creates the Garsopa Falls, the most spectacular waterfalls in India, commonly known as Jog Falls. The only break in the unbroken watershed of the Western Ghats face is the 13-kilometer wide Palakkad Gap, also known as Palghat. The river Ponnani, flowing westward through this gap, appears to be a misfit river. Now let's look at the Narmada River. The Narmada River, of length 1300 kilometers and drainage basin area 92,670 square kilometers, rises from the plateau of Amarkantak of the Michael Hills of Chhattisgarh. Moving northwestward, it passes through a complex course near Jabalpur, through some impressive marble gorges, the most spectacular being the Dhuandhar waterfalls near Jabalpur. It has rich alluvial deposits in its valley. Finally, it widens below Bharuch and makes a 27-kilometer wide estuary to enter the Gulf of Khambat in the Arabian Sea. Now let's look at the Tapi River. Having a length of 700 kilometers and a basin area of 66,900 square kilometers, the river Tapi rises from the Satpura range and flows westward almost parallel to Satpura. At Khandwa Burhanpur Gap, the Narmada and Tapi come close to each other. Below Jalgaon, the river, like the Narmada, flows in a rift valley but in a much constricted form between the Satpura range to the north and the Ajanta range to the south. Below the city of Surat, it makes an estuary and merges into the Gulf of Khambat. Subarna Rekha River. The Subarna Rekha rises a little to the southwest of Ranchi, where it has a number of waterfalls. Its length is 400 kilometers with basin area of 28,000 square kilometers. In a general easterly direction, it passes through Jamshedpur and flows to the Bay of Bengal near Balasore. Its drainage basin is shared by the states of Jharkhand, Odisha and West Bengal. The Brahmani River. The Brahmani River, of length of 420 kilometers, is formed by the confluence of Koel and Shankh rivers. They join together at Roorkela and drain the western parts of the Garjhat hills. Flowing through Bonai, Talcher and Balasore districts, it merges into the Bay of Bengal above the Paradweep port. With the Brahmani River to its north, a delta complex forms below Bhadrak, the Mahanadi. The Mahanadi is the most important river of Odisha as well as that of Chhattisgarh. Its length is 885 kilometers and basin area is 1,39,000 659 square kilometers. This river rises in the Chhattisgarh basin, draining the western and eastern parts of Raipur. In the initial stage, it flows towards the northeast, and after receiving a number of streams such as Sionath and Sandur on both its flanks at heights between 200 meters and 700 meters, the combined water gets a natural exit towards the east through a gorge which has been impounded to create the Hirakud Dam. Now let's look at the Godavari River. Godavari is the largest river with length of 1465 kilometers and a basin area of 3,02,063.93 square kilometers of peninsular India. It rises in the western Ghats from a spring below Nashik, drains eastern and southeastern Maharashtra, Bastar Plateau of Chhattisgarh, and Telangana and Andhra regions of Andhra Pradesh. It receives a large number of tributaries, particularly on its left bank, such as Purna, Maner, Penganga, Pranahita, which is the combined version of Vardha and Venganga, Indravati, Tal, and Sabri. The Manjira is the only important right bank tributary. The Indravati and Sabri are the two streams which rise on the western slopes of eastern Ghats, but they flow east and southeasternwards respectively. Now let's look at the other river, the Krishna. The river of Krishna has its origin near Mahabaleshwar in the vertical faces of western Ghats. Its length is 1290 kilometers and basin area is 2,54,743 square kilometers. A number of minor streams like Koyana and Ghat Prabha join the Krishna River to give a subdendritic pattern. The Bhima in the north and the Tungabhadra in the south are the other important tributaries of the Krishna River. Further east, beyond the gorge in the Sri Salem hills below Vijayawada, it has built its fertile Birdfoot Delta or the Mississippi type of delta. The next type of the river, the Pennar. The Pennar River rises in the Kolar district of South Mysore Plateau. Its main tributaries are Chitravati and Papagni. It flows through a gorge of Kadapa quartzite and enters the Bay of Bengal in the form of an estuary. Next, the Kaveri River. The Kaveri is a sacred river like the Ganga. Hence, it is called the Ganga of South India. Its length is 765 kilometers and has a basin area of 85,624 square kilometers. It rises from the southern part of Mysore Plateau as a rocky mountain stream forming rapids, cataracts and waterfalls. Its drainage basin receives rainfall during the summer monsoon as well as during the retreating and winter monsoon. Only 20 km above Mysore, it has been dammed to form the Krishna Sagar Reservoir. It passes through the islands of Srirangapatnam and Sivasamudram. The channel around the Sivasamudram makes a succession of rapids which were harnessed to develop hydel power in 1902. The Amravati River. Amravati River is a tributary of Kaveri River in Coimbatore, district of Tamil Nadu. Having its origin at the Kerala-Tamil Nadu border, it is 175 kilometers in length. It joins with the Kaveri in the Karur district. It irrigates over 60,000 acres of land in Coimbatore. Due to the heavy industrialization in its basin, the river is highly polluted. Now let's look at the Tamraparni River. This is a river of the Tirunelveli district. It rises on the slopes of Palni hills of Western Ghats and passes Madurai to flow into the Gulf of Mannar through the Ramanantapur Peninsula. Now let's look at the rivers of the Western Sahyadris. The western slopes of the Western Ghats receive heavy rainfall between 200 to 500 centimeters during the southwest monsoon. The small and swift flowing rivers traverse the narrow coastal plain. Because of heavy discharge of water and narrow width of coastal plain, they do not make delta. All these rivers have carved out narrow valleys with steep gradient forming cataracts and waterfalls. The famous Jog Falls lies on the Sharavati River. Although with small drainage area, about 2% of India, these rivers contribute about 18% of the water yield of the country and have great potential for hydel power. The Committee on the Runoff of American Geophysical Union treats the micro unit within a river basin as the watershed, while the sum of all the micro, meso and macro tributaries of a river is known as a river basin. A watershed is an area of land that drains all the streams to a common outlet such as a stream, river, lake, wetland or coastal bodies. It is the area drained by a river and its tributaries. Now let's look at the river regimes. The pattern of the seasonal flow of water in a river is called its regime. The main difference in the flow pattern of the Himalayan and the Peninsular rivers is caused by the differences in climate. The Himalayan rivers are perennial and their regimes are dependent on the pattern of water supply, both from snowmelt and rainfall. Their regimes are monsoonal as well as glacial. The regime of most of the peninsular rivers, on the other hand, are only monsoonal as they are controlled by the rainfall alone. Even the regimes of different peninsular rivers are not the same because of the differences in the seasonal distribution of the rainfall. The discharge is the volume of water flowing in a river measured over time. It is measured either in cusecs or cumecs. The Ganga has its minimum flow during the period of January to June. The maximum flow of water in the Ganga occurs either in July or August. After September, there is a steady fall in the flow of Ganga. The river thus has a typical monsoonal regime. There are striking differences in the river regimes in the eastern and western parts of Ganga basin. The Ganga maintains a sizable flow in the early parts of summer before the monsoon rains begin. This is largely due to the water supply from the Himalayan snowmelt. The discharge data, however, do not include the volume of water diverted for irrigational purposes at different points before the Farakka barrage, Malda in Western Bengal. The mean maximum discharge of Ganga at Farakka is about 55,000 cusecs, while the mean minimum is only 1300 cusecs. The two peninsular rivers display an interesting difference in their regime as compared to the Himalayan rivers. The Narmada has a very low volume of discharge from January to July. It suddenly rises in August when the maximum discharge is attained. The fall in October is as spectacular as the rise in August. The Godavari flows at a low level until May. It has the minimum discharge in May and the maximum in July-August. After August, there is a sharp fall in the water flow. Although the volume of flow in October and November is higher than that in any months from January to May. The mean maximum discharge of Godavari at Valapuram is 3200 cusecs. These figures give an idea of the regime of the river. The flow of water in Narmada as recorded at Gurudeshwar shows that the maximum flow is of the order of 2300 cusecs while minimum flow is only 15 cusecs. The data on water discharge in different rivers in different parts of the year have important implications to their utilization by the states. It is on this count that interstate disputes arise. Shifting courses of the rivers. An interesting phenomenon of most of the extra-peninsular rivers and that of peninsular rivers have shifting courses, especially in their lower reaches. In upper reaches, the Himalayan rivers have the tendencies of river capturing. River capturing is caused mainly by the headward and downward erosion of the river. In the plain areas, generally the rivers form meanders in their courses. During floods, due to increased quantity of water, the streams try to strengthen their courses. Earth movements do have their role in affecting these processes. Some of the important river captures are the ancient Saraswati River, which provided an abode for early Aryan settlers, which presents a typical example of shifting courses and river capturing. Descending from the Himalayan ranges, its initial course during the prehistoric period was passing near Churu, and the Luni River was one of its tributaries. It gradually shifted towards west till it joined the Sutlej near the Ahmadpur. Later on, the water of its upper course was captured by a tributary of Ganga River, as a result of which its lower course became dry. This gave birth to the Yamuna River, an important and the longest tributary of Ganga system. Even today, the dry valley of Saraswati River is found in Rajasthan area in form of Ghaggar Valley. Similar shifting has also been observed in the rivers of Punjab during the historical past. The records of the 3rd century BC show that Indus flowed more than 130 km east of its present course, through the now practically dry beds of deserted channel to the run of Kutch, which was then a gulf of Arabian Sea. Later on, it gradually shifted towards the west and occupied its present position. During the reign of Akbar the Great, the Chenab and Jhelum rivers joined the Indus near Uch in Pakistan, but their present confluence lies near Mithankot, about 100 km downstream of the old place of confluence. Similarly, Multan was formerly located along the Ravi river, but today it is situated about 60 km south of its confluence with the Chenab. About 250 years ago, the Beas river changed its old course, traces of which are still found between Montgomery and Multan, and joined the Sutlej river near Sultanpur. In the early part of the Christian era, the Sutlej had more easterly course and independently discharged its water into the Arabian Sea. About 250 years ago, the Brahmaputra flowing through Mymensingh was discharging its waters into the Meghna river, the Padma river, forming a new stream called the Jamuna in Rangpur and Jamalpur districts of Bangladesh. A fluvial channel of Brahmaputra is still flowing along the same old course and retains the old name. This change in the course was associated with 30 meters rise in Madhopur forest between 1720 to 1830 AD. Even the entry of Brahmaputra to the plains of Assam is also the outcome of the process of river capturing. According to geologists, during early days, the Sangpo river of Tibet, taking an easterly course, used to join the Irrawaddy river in Myanmar through the Chinduin, which was then a large river transporting huge quantity of water. Later on, a small river flowing along the southern slopes of Himalayas through its headward erosion captured the water of the Sangpo river and thus helped in the evolution of the stream of Brahmaputra. Similarly, Kapili, a tributary of Brahmaputra, has captured the waters of Meghna river of Bangladesh. In old days, Meghna originated from the Bareil ranges between Meghalaya and Manipur and flowing southward emptied its waters in the eastern part of the Bay of Bengal. But Kapili, through headward erosion, captured its northern course. The Lumding Halflong Pass is an evidence of this abandoned valley. In a similar way, the Dhansiri river, capturing the water of the tributary Kapili river, has helped in formation of a new river called Jamuna. There can be numerous causes responsible for the shifting of the river courses. These include the shifting gentle slopes of the Great Plains of India, meandering courses of the rivers, strengthening of the river courses during the floods, upliftment of the Potwar Plateau, which comprises of Delhi Sirhind Plateau, downdrapping of the Malda Gap, rise in the Madhopur forest area, and the uplift of the Barend area. Now let's look at the interstate water disputes. Water, being the most precious resource, is required for domestic irrigation and industrial purposes. River is more than an amenity, it is a treasure. It offers a necessity of life that must be rationed among those who have power over it. Most of the Indian rivers traverse more than one state. Each of the states of a river basin tries to obtain maximum quantity of water. This has resulted in many water disputes in the country. In the Indian Constitution, water is a state subject. Consequently, the state governments virtually exercise full control on planning, development, regulation, distribution, and control of water flowing through their territories. Under Article 262 of the Indian Constitution, the Parliament is empowered to provide the adjudication or control of water in any interstate river. Most of the rivers of India traverse several states. Under the Water Dispute Act of 1956, amended in 2002, a tribunal of 3 sitting judges of the Supreme Court has to be constituted by the central government for a settlement of an interstate water dispute when a request is received from a state government. According to the Interstate Water Dispute Act of 1968, the central government has also been given responsibility of regulation and development of interstate rivers and river valleys to the extent to which such regulation and development under the control of Union is declared by the Parliament by the law to be expedient in the public interest. Some of the important interstate water disputes in India are the Kaveri water dispute between Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu, the Krishna water dispute between Maharashtra, Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, the Tungabhadra water dispute between Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka, the Godavari water dispute between Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Odisha, Narmada water dispute between Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Rajasthan, the Ravi, Beas and Sutlej water dispute between Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Delhi and Jammu and Kashmir. Drainage is a defining feature of Indian geography. It intricately aids India in developing the way it does. Civilizations around the world have always been seen to flourish and start around the rivers. Himalayan rivers being perennial, peninsular rivers being seasonal, aid to the agricultural requirements, medicinal requirements, etc. Rivers are not just physical features in India, they are revered too. Kumbh Mela is one such example.